Good afternoon. I'm Megan Beckelay, Program Director for the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department Heads Association and moderator for this webinar on Applied Learning, Building Real-World Engineering Skills in an Online World, presented by Coursera. Before introducing our speakers, I have a quick housekeeping announcement. We will be accepting questions throughout the presentation, which you can submit using the Q&A text box. To access the Q&A box, simply click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen. We will address all questions during the last portion of the presentation. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers today, beginning with JP Moran. JP serves as the head of Coursera for Campus Americas and also the global head of channels and emerging business. He is a veteran technology executive with experience in advisory services and building enterprise solutions with Skillsoft and Career Builder. We are also joined by Melody Liu. Melody is Senior Product Manager responsible for technical learning and content authoring experience at Coursera. She has been instrumental in launching and scaling Coursera's latest hands-on learning platform, Coursera Labs. With that, I will hand it off to you, JP, to get us started.
Thanks so much, Megan. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you again for everybody's time here this afternoon. We're really excited to sit down, walk you through some of the things that Coursera's seen in the market globally, and then also to show you guys some of the applied learning tools that we have on the platform that everybody's taking advantage of today. But before I get started, I would love to really start to get the interaction going with this group because it's going to be more informative if you guys start to ask a couple questions. So we're going to actually start off with asking, where is everybody calling in from? So if you guys can just go into that chat or Q&A window and start to list a couple of the areas from what schools that you guys are participating from, we would greatly appreciate it. Philly, first one coming in. University of Pennsylvania, wonderful. Now don't be shy, guys, because I promise I'm going to push everybody today to make sure that we make this interactive for everybody. Akron, I'm calling actually in from Cleveland, Ohio, so I love my zips. Perfect. Nice. California, wonderful. Well, with that being said, thank you so much for participating today. We'll jump right into it. I'm going to go through some, once again, some content up front. And then Melody's going to take you guys through some hands-on applied learning in terms of how our Coursera Labs actually operate. So as I get started here, I want to talk about some of the several challenges that you guys are facing today. Blended classrooms. When COVID started, one of the interesting facts that we ran into is that over 51% of universities globally didn't even have an online program. So as we moved into this COVID environment and had to then move all the content online into this blended type environment, it really caused some large challenges across the globe. 2, student employability. It's a very, very difficult economic market out there for a lot of students that are actually moving into the employment world, and making sure that we can find job relevant skills for these students today continues to be a challenge with the ever-changing market. 3, cost management. The cost to, one, get an education, it continues to go up, but not only that, also the infrastructure costs on a university or higher education continues to go up as well. Capacity. We see this quite a bit. As I talked about a little bit earlier, with the 51% being a challenge in the online environment, we also run into capacity issues with students. Some students actually don't have internet capabilities. So the ability to be able to take in that online content in an offline format and digest it when they're at home or in a place that's rural is something that we need to look into as well. And then lastly, faculty development. We continuously talk about the costs, the classrooms, the student employability capacity, but we really haven't talked about you, the faculty, who are supporting the students and growing all of these important people moving forward. So with that, I ask you the first question of today. What are the most pressing challenges on your campus that you guys are seeing? Wait a second here to see if I can get a couple answers coming in. Zoom fatigue. That sounds about right. Engagement. Well, hopefully as we go through this, we're going to try and make sure it stays a little bit engaged here, and then obviously take you through some engagement tools here that we have at Coursera to help support you guys in the field. As we talked about, one of the greatest challenges is the student employment as they're actually moving into the marketplace. We've just had a great challenge in terms of COVID. A lot of jobs were laid off, but what we're seeing is that a lot of the skills from the students today just don't have the necessary means for the employers to be able to use them. So we've been getting a lot of pushback from a lot of employers just saying the skills aren't there. On top of that, we're seeing a lot of these jobs move into automation, with over 85 million jobs being displaced by 2025, which I'm sure that a lot of you are seeing there, those jobs today being impacted because it is in engineering, computer science, digital areas. And on top of that, a lot of those core skills that people actually do have when they're leaving the university are changing, with the half-life being roughly 2 years in terms of the skills that they are learning today. On top of that, with the double disruption of COVID, you can see it's an extremely difficult market for these students today to move into. There's been a massive, massive change. 42% of the jobs that are out there today are going to have a completely, entirely different skill set that are necessary 2 years from now. In less than 2 years, the shelf life of those skills are actually going to disappear. And we're going to have to continue to retrain and upskill the people that are currently in the workforce. And then 10% of these companies claim that the full technology stack that they have inside of their operations are not being utilized to the capacity that they should be. Once again, because the skills just aren't there to take advantage of these things. Tim Cook, everybody knows Apple. He comes out publicly and says there is a mismatch between the skills that are coming out of colleges and what are the skills that we believe are necessary for the future. So how are we going to help those people? Well, the good news is in the field that you guys are working in today and the data that we're receiving, the top 6 jobs that are in demand today, data analysts, AI machine learning, software applications developers, robotics, a lot of these things involve digital and data skills that are necessary. But the challenge lies in how are we applying these skills to the actual job that's going to be necessary. So to kind of take it back for 1 second, we want to give you a little bit of insight in terms of how we are actually understanding the marketplace. One is not only do we work with thousands of universities around the globe, but we also work with governments and, more importantly, the enterprises out there that are actually supplying these jobs for the future. So as you can see, all the partners that we have on the left-hand side there with Samsung, PayPal, Ford, we are gathering data and information from them in terms of what jobs are necessary and what skills do they need. So we are getting that industry-level insights into the future needs of that company. 2, once we receive those company-level insights, we're able to develop content with our university partners, start to bring in specific roles and insights to build these curriculums, and then deliver those learning pathways. So hopefully, when it's all said and done, we'll be able to deliver a better student to the a better quality student out of university to the employers. The challenge that you guys earlier mentioned was 76% of students were actually taught online in 2020, and they are having Zoom fatigue. So how are we actually going to change that where we're having less of Zoom fatigue and more of applied learning through content today? Right now, we still have the persistent digital divide where you have unequal internet conditions globally. In some rural areas, they don't have internet at all. So how are we going to be able to provide that applied learning to that student? 2, student engagement. People are sitting on these calls time after time after time, and it's very, very difficult to keep their attention, especially when you have like a cell phone or something like that off to the side they can be playing with. And then lastly, the gaps in the online teaching skills. Technology is moving so fast, and it costs anywhere from 1,100 to 1,600 hours just to build a content for a course. So the ability for you to actually build a course, develop it, roll it out to your students in the amount of time that's necessary is extremely difficult without already the next new thing coming down the pipe. So what we'd like to do is help you with your applied learning and have more of a critical impact with your students today. What we're hearing is that 75% of the students today, if they are not taking an applied learning class or working hands-on in terms of a lab or environment or doing something like that, they actually fail to remember the skill. On top of that, when you actually are working in the workplace, they're saying that they get 2 times higher engagement when they're actually working in terms of in something that is pertinent to the skill that they're trying to leverage. And then lastly, our science and engineering graduates are reporting long-term employability benefits from working in project-based curriculums, which we obviously find is extremely important. So with that being said, I want to turn it over to, I forgot we have a poll here. In terms of how successfully have you or your faculty incorporated hands-on applied learning into your virtual programs? We'd love to get some feedback here from all of you. couple more seconds here. I don't have the capability to close it out. I don't know if you do, Megan. Are we able to display that somewhat successfully? Wonderful. So this is a perfect group. Hopefully when Melody jumps in here in a couple of seconds, you guys will be asking her a bunch of questions in terms of how we work with inside our lab environment. So super excited about that. Last couple things from me is, as you guys can see, there is a need for this demand for hands-on learning. It hasn't gone away. Strata came out with some information in terms of students and where they're seeking their skills and training certifications from. And it is definitely 100% more for hands-on learning, and it's not going away anytime soon. With that being said, we wanted to make sure at Coursera that we start to develop some hands-on skills and emerging career pathways that we see. So these are just 6 of the areas, which I'm sure all of you guys are very familiar with, that we are starting to work in to develop specific career pathways that will hopefully help you and your students develop better skills for the future. The way that we're looking at it today is around the student, and specifically the engineering student. What we would like to do is package up our university partner content with some top industry partner content. So you're getting the University of London along with some semantic, packaging up that curriculum to hopefully provide the student the next level, which is moving into the workforce, or the second part, moving into a master's degree pathway, whichever way they want to move forward. But the whole goal is to set up that student to be future ready in terms of what he or she would like to do. The other thing about our engineering schools that are actually delivering content on our platform for everyone to use is that you'll see is over top of the top 50 engineering schools globally are actually participating and using our Coursera Labs as well. Not only that, but top global firms that will be hiring a lot of these folks, Google, IBM, Amazon, Unity, Autodesk, they too are actually preparing content to be put on the platform and used. So with Melody, hopefully with that, this will give you a nice introduction to start to showcase some of the Coursera Labs.
Awesome. Thank you so much, JP. As JP mentioned, it is really hard for technical learners, engineering students to master skills without going hands-on. And one of the challenges we've learned before we even built Coursera Lab is, if you go to the next click, it's really, really difficult for students to configure their local environments, their coding stack, to be able to even get started with their learning. And this is not only a challenge for the students, but also for the TAs who need to assist the students with troubleshooting their local environments. So this is becoming even more challenging problem with online learning these days, with students having really limited access to resources at home. And this is not only a challenge for the students, but also a challenge for the universities when the universities are trying to provide these hands-on learning environments. We've seen universities trying to use tools like Jupyter Notebook or VS Code to teach these data science and computer science skills. However, when it comes to actually scaling that experience to hundreds, thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of students, universities typically need to invest heavily in infrastructure and DevOps to make sure the environment is scalable, it is stable, and that's a lot of operational costs for the universities. And on the teaching side, TAs and teaching staff don't really have good tools to scale a lot of the grading and assignment management. And that's really also slowing down when students will be able to get feedback on their project or on their hands-on work. So with that in mind, we built Coursera Labs as an innovative feature on the Coursera platform among all other technical learning tools. So with Coursera Labs, educators like you can easily create and deliver hands-on learning projects, assignments, or even sandboxes at scale. All of these experiences are delivered from the cloud, so learners don't need to install or configure anything on their local laptop or computers, and they can go hands-on in a pre-configured environment within their browser. Learners get access to a secure cloud storage environment and compute resources so they can learn from literally anywhere. Coursera Lab is also built with educational features like auto graders and provides a very streamlined authoring platform. So your faculties and TAs can really save time from the manual work and spend more time on teaching. So now let's take a look at the learner experiences that Coursera Labs provide. The first learner experience is guided project. So in a guided project, learners get this side-by-side interface where they can watch the video instruction on the right side, as you can see in the GIF on the right side. And the learner will be able to follow along in a virtual cloud workspace on the left side of the screen. So these projects are typically very short, about 1 to 2 hours max. And all the software, the data, the environment are pre-configured and pre-installed for the learner on the left side in that cloud workspace. So here, learners will be able to actually acquire practical skills by working on real-world projects using tools like Tableau, Android Studio, Unity, and many more, as long as they can be installed in the virtual environment. And here's an example of a guided project using scene scale to teach mechanical engineering. In this 1 hour guided project, students learn about a finite element method and validate a simulation case using scene scale, an engineering simulation tool from the browser. The video on the right side walks students through the classical 3-step process of every simulation, which includes pre-processing, processing, and post-processing steps. Next slide. And here's another example of guided project for Android development. In this guided project, learners get access to Android Studio from their browser in the cloud space and learn how to create a simple Android app under 2 hours. The unique guided experience really offer learners, especially beginner learners, a great way to master a skill, a technical skill, without feeling daunting about the how to even get started. And learners also get something tangible at the end when they complete a guided project so that they can actually showcase their skills. Great. Our next learner experience is lab assignment. So very similar to a guided project, students get a pre-configured environment based on the needs of the course, so they don't have to worry about the computer specs or configuring local environment. But unlike guided project, where students follow along, in a lab assignment, students solve problems by themselves. So this is really good for graded assessments or practice assignments. As an instructor, you can easily load any starter code or data set in the lab assignment environment for your students. And we also provide solutions to automatically grade these lab assignments submissions. So lab assignments are typically used within the course, and you will be able to get access to courses that have lab assignments or author lab assignments by yourself. Here's an example of a lab assignment using Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code, as many of you might already know, it's a very popular computer science tool that allows developers, not only students, but real developers in the world to learn how to learn and practice and code their computer science projects. So in this example, not only do students get access to the developer tool, which is VS Code, they also get access to a full stack of technology and tools that's built inside the lab. So for example, this allows you to teach like a wide range of computer science skills from, let's say, writing simple Java and Python programs to creating a HTML form, web page, building a SQL database, learn how to write SQL queries, all the way to being able to create a Node.js web server, adding network routing, and create a full stack web application.
Hey, Melody, one of the questions that came in is, if someone was to go and develop this course on their platform, is this only to them or is this wide open to everybody? So if they wanted to go create this lab assignment, is it on their private setting, or is this actually going to be open to all 78 million learners that we have on the Coursera platform?
Great question. Yeah, this is we do offer two options, but in the campus teaching environment, you have the option to only create such an experience for your private school teaching. yeah, when you wanted to become a Coursera partner, you do have the option to also take that private course or that private experience and turn it on to get to access the thousands of millions of students on Coursera's platform.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, as you can see, many of the universities have chosen to use industry standard tools like Jupyter Notebook, VS Code, or RStudio on Coursera Labs. These are similar tools that students will use at work because they're industry standard. So from learning in lab assignment on Coursera Labs, students can really learn the skills that are relevant for their future jobs. Okay. Next, in addition to the real world tools that we host on Coursera Labs, we have also seen universities like University of London, in this case, integrating custom applications onto Coursera Labs. So University of London created this very innovative way for students in their intro to computer programming course to explore topics that are covered in their online Bachelor of Computer Science degree. So in this example, they created the application called Sleuth, where students are able to write code to solve a series of interactive detective puzzles and being able to immediately apply their coding skills in a very gamified environment. And University of London isn't the only university who wants to create innovative, engaging experience and to facilitate a hands-on learning experience. The digital learning team at Imperial College of London has created a simulation lab tool called Imperial Visualization to teach physics. They were able to easily host the simulation on Coursera Labs, and other learning management platform that they use didn't really provide a good way for them to integrate such experience. And they believe Coursera Labs opens the door to a much wider breadth of options, such as games, simulations, visualizations, innovative assessments, and maybe some of the immersive experience like 360 videos or VR experience.
Melody, one of the questions that did come in is what software setup do students need for Coursera Labs? Like, do they need to install additional software or have a local environment configured? Is there any of that kind of stuff? And then there's another follow-up question after that too.
Great. Yeah, great question. So with Coursera Labs, the students don't need to touch any of the local environments or install the software on their local environments. So all the tools, the software, the packages, the libraries are all pre-configured in that learning environment hosted on Coursera. So all they do is they get onto a Coursera project or course. They click a button, it launches another browser window, and boom, they got access to VS Code on the cloud. They got access to full stack development environment within the browser. They do not need to waste time installing anything or troubleshooting anything on their local laptop.
Perfect. And that might also go into, Sid, one of your questions was in terms of, do they have to be on the Coursera platform only for that school if they're subscribing? So the answer is two-part. One is we do integrate with Canvas, and we would have the capability to integrate there. But two is they don't need to do anything. We're going to be able to put up that environment specifically for the student. If your university or higher education institute decides to partner and purchase one of our enterprise licenses, then we would go ahead and be able to do that. Perfect.
Great. Yeah. Let's now maybe dive a little bit into kind of the infrastructure that's hosting and supporting such experiences. So by hosting the experiences and the labs onto Coursera Labs, we saw in the example earlier that University of London and Imperial, they didn't need to worry about the infrastructure on their own or how to manage the learner lab experience. They can really just focus on creating the experience, the innovative learner experience. This is because Coursera Lab is built on top of Coursera's very robust, secure, and scalable cloud infrastructure. We leverage technologies called Docker container, and we also provide infrastructure that's using virtual machines for Linux and Ubuntu or Windows virtual machine. And the infrastructure is, I would say, free for institutions like you to leverage as long as you're part of the Coursera for Campus plan. So this is something that we have been working very hard on the Coursera, and we have delegated infrastructure and DevOps team for Coursera Labs. So your IT team or your on-campus support team don't need to worry about the DevOps cost, the scalability, or the maintenance of our online infrastructure environment. Great, now let's take a look at some numbers and impact. So Coursera Lab is actually a relatively new product on the Coursera platform. However, since launched in 2020, we've seen Coursera Labs is absolutely battle tested in some of the top technical courses on Coursera for MOOC scale. So we've, with 5.5 million learner enrollments in courses with lab assignments and 2.4 million learner enrollments in guided projects, our experience is tested by students, embraced by students, and we are very confident in our scalability. We've also seen very strong adoption among universities that offer online degree on Coursera. Over 10 for credit degrees are now using Coursera Labs to provide their hands-on learning experiences to over 27,000 students enrollment. And besides the scale, on the impact side, we've seen courses with lab assignments have 20% higher completion rate because it really removes the hurdle of installing things locally. And overall, the completion rate of guided projects is even above 60%. And we've also seen 30% increase in skills development thanks to that automated feedback that learner can get immediately on their work. Behind these numbers, I want to call that are real students who are learning and practicing on labs. Both beginners and advanced learners are telling us in our research, having this one-stop shop lab experience from the browser has really increased the ROI of their learning time. It removes the headache of setup and really makes the learning much more applied and much more job relevant. On the university side, Coursera Labs was rated as the #1 innovation by our top educators around the world. And universities are telling us that Coursera Labs allows them to seamlessly and efficiently provide hands-on learning experiences to their learners without worrying about the skill, the cost, or the management of the infrastructure. So with that, let's actually hear directly from Professor Chris Brooks at the University of Michigan Institute for Data Science on why Coursera Labs was the key to their success of their online for credit degree. We have video coming up.
Hi, I'm Chris Brooks, faculty at the University of Michigan School of Information. I teach data science courses in our residential undergraduate program and have launched several MOOCs on the Coursera platform. In the fall of 2019, we launched our first online degree on Coursera, a Master of Applied Data Science. I wanted to talk about how Coursera Labs helped us from the viewpoints of 3 different stakeholders: the students, the faculty, and the institution. So first, the student perspective. We launched a degree with nearly 200 students in the first cohort, so we needed them to be able to jump into hands-on practice from the same learning environment that the program uses. Coursera Labs allows us to provide this. Learners simply click a link and a new window opens with a pre-configured environment based on the needs of the course. There's no additional login needed, and the students don't have to worry about their computer specs, for instance, whether they have enough CPU or GPU power for a deep learning course. Importantly, all of the software packages that they need and the versions of those packages, which are synced with our lectures, are provided right out of the box. So let's talk about the faculty perspective. In our online degree, the Coursera Labs environment is available from day 1 of the course in the way in which it was tested by the instructor. What this has meant for me as a faculty member is that I can spend time during the semester helping explain concepts and give clarifications to the material instead of having to worry about system or configuration problems. So finally, the institutional perspective. Unlike traditional on-campus labs, partnering with Coursera meant that we had to add no extra DevOps capacity on our side. In fact, we don't use any in-house DevOps. All of the running of compute instances to support the students, scaling the system to meet capacity demands, or technical support issues are handled by Coursera. This significantly reduces the staffing costs of our program. So that's a brief overview of how Coursera Labs has worked for us at Michigan with our applied data science degree. Coursera Labs has been easy to get started with, and all of us at Michigan are happy to share with you our experiences and knowledge using this new part of the platform.
Awesome. Great. That was a great, nice summary from Chris Brooks on how Coursera Labs really helped to develop the hands-on learning for the University of Michigan's online data science degree. I saw a question in the chat about what are some other universities that are using Coursera Labs in their technical degrees. Yes, we do have 10 different universities that are actually using Coursera Labs to host their hands-on learning experience in technical degrees. And those technical degrees include, not only data science degree, but computer science degree, EE, and many of the degrees designed in a way that's very hands-on and very focused on the latest technology and the latest technology and latest technical skills. So to just give a sense of the technical degrees on Coursera's platform, we'll be happy to share maybe a link afterwards to what are some of the technical degrees that are available on Coursera. But I can say that it's not only degrees in the US, but also literally across the world. So with that, I saw another question coming in about the differences between Coursera's guided project and lab assignments. So this is actually a good segue to kind of summarize what Coursera Labs offer. So first of all, Coursera Labs offer a good wide range of catalogs that includes lab assignments and guided projects. And you can think of lab assignments as an assignment that students do on their own, right? They're solving a problem versus in guided project, a instructor or like a video, they'll follow along a video to complete tasks and complete a project in that way. So I would say one is more follow along, the other is more like do it on your own. So it kind of covers different pedagogical needs depending on what you're trying to accomplish with the online teaching. And the catalog is going to serve you as teaching material that you can supplement your on-campus teaching, or you can even use lab assignments as a way to assess your students' ability for credit degrees. So with the hands-on learning part, students are really being able to master the skills using the real-world tools that are hosted on Coursera Labs. Everything is directly from browser, and students are really able to get feedback either through the autograders or they can follow along the visual instructions in guided project. So in addition to the learning experience, we really believe that having auto-graded functionality within lab assignments can drive down the cost of teaching, and to be able to allow your staff, your TAs to focus more on assisting students. And in addition to the experiences that you get as part of the content offering, you will also be able to author private courses or projects using Coursera Labs to create your own customized or your own online learning content to schedule teaching and drive student engagement. And lastly, this is all hosted on Coursera, so you don't need to worry about any infrastructure costs, scalability, and our team will provide 24/7 tech support.
So Melody, a couple of, as you're going through, there's a couple of questions that are coming in. One was showing a peek at the interface, and then, maybe we can blend these two in, but some real world tools like MATLAB, and then what are some of the labs that we have for our electrical and computer engineering programs?
Yeah, great question. So to first address the question about the interface, when we showed examples, that's actually examples that we took directly from the course or directly from a live project. So that is the real experience of the real interface. We also, if you go onto Coursera's website and search guided project, you can even enroll in a couple guided project by yourself and see what that experience looks like in live. Next question is around what types of real world tools that you can use with Guided Project. Can you use MATLAB? Yeah, so Guided Project is, we offer a pretty wide range of tools. And in fact, it's the technology really, the virtual machine technology really allows you to install anything literally for Guided Project. The MATLAB is one example. MATLAB does require license. So Guided Project does provide the ability to provision license, but as you may know, licensing softwares there are different types of licenses and different kind of complexity. So we would recommend, if you're interested, when we're looking at the specific license and the specific tools, we will be able to kind of confirm whether that can be used in the Guided Project. Yeah, and then a question about what labs that we have for electronical and computer engineering programs. Yeah, so for electronical and computer engineering programs, if the tools that you use are kind of can be installed on just think of it, can be installed on a Windows or a Linux machine, then they should be able to be installed in the Guided Project environment. So you can deliver that to your students. And we've also seen, in some of the examples earlier, we've also seen universities creating simulations. So instead of the actual software, they're creating kind of a simulation environment and hosted on Coursera Labs. So students can really like play with, let's say, like a breadboard simulation and play with how they would plug and play and understand some of the basic concepts in electronic engineering, but also being able to actually go a little bit hands-on without having a physical device. Yeah, I saw a question around how can we integrate hardware with Coursera Labs. Yeah, that does come up a lot in the engineering degree. And right now, Coursera Lab is not integrated with any hardware. As you can see, the cloud infrastructure is hosted on Coursera. There isn't really a way for you to connect the cloud environment to a physical hardware device. So that's not supported. That said, we have seen, in some of the engineering degree on Coursera, we have seen either when you need students to use hardware, they could use the hardware and they could upload certain part of the results from what they learned from the hardware to report back in a programming assignment or in a staff graded assignment. Yeah, but the other strategy, as I mentioned earlier, is that it's not to rely on hardware, but to use kind of a simulation environment that can be hosted on Coursera. Great.
Perfect.
Awesome. JP, do you want to move on, and we can always answer questions?
Yeah, we can always add on. Obviously, there's going to be a couple more questions that start to come through here. Melody's covered a range of different things, but I think what's kind of important is what you guys see on the screen. We're looking to develop that job relevant content that's going to allow that student to transfer into an enterprise working environment quickly and start to understand things. More importantly, we want to start to work on this hands-on learning. As you guys saw from earlier, we're getting a better adoption rate from the students and they're enjoying it more. Let's continue to enable those students. Teaching at scale. This solution allows you to teach at scale. We mentioned earlier, we have hundreds of thousands of folks that are currently using this. So let's be able to go on and help support you guys and your staff across the entire university. Two last things, private authoring. We have the capability to use pre-built in-course real-world tools. You guys can then go ahead and use your tools that are either at your university and spin up a guided project with MATLAB, or we can start to work with you in terms of partnering up and bringing your licenses in. Several different ways for us to work with you in terms of creating labs or guided projects in your own private environment that would allow you to take that license and share it with all of your students. And the last thing is maximizing those cost savings. Constantly we're hearing in terms of the costs. The cost to maintain these environments is very high and very labor intensive on top of that. So being able to take advantage of the infrastructure that Coursera is already providing as part of your package is super, super helpful for you guys to be able to continue to develop on the platform. Anything else, Melody, that you would add in terms of that? Perfect. Last couple things that I want to leave with you guys here. See if I can advance these slides. There we go. Oh, it's just a couple different ways that folks today are kind of building cutting edge curriculum with Coursera. By no means is this any school, but these are what we're hearing. And I wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of what we are actually getting back from the field as I talked to several universities across the globe. Right now, what they're looking to do is not necessarily move all of their faculty, content off and use all of Coursera's. What they're trying to do is start to blend some of the faculty-led content with some of the content from our industry partners like IBM, like Deep Learning, AWS, Google, whomever that might be. So this is just an example of a BTech computer science with an AI specialization. Once again, this is nothing that we're doing, it's just an example. But as we're starting to lean into this a little bit more, we talked about some of the challenges with keeping up with industry content from Google and IBM, for example. It's really, really labor intensive. You have to go to that specific industry partner, find out whatever the new cutting edge thing they have, how it's going to impact their current curriculum. Then you have to develop that curriculum. Then you actually have to go build the course, which is going to take quite a while to do that. And then you actually have to put it out to the students. After you put it out to the students, you get enrollments. And now you're finally launching the class. You're a year and a half in by the time it's already happening. Students take the class. 6 months later, they go leave. That skill is almost gone, right? So we want to be able to work with industry partners, allow you to take advantage of the teams and the infrastructures that we've built to hopefully start to bring in some more of these cutting edge industry partner type content specific areas into what you're doing today. Lots of different ways to do this. But this is just an example that we received back from one of our university partners in terms of how they are actually doing it. I'll take a look here. Blended idea. Okay, so Sid, this will probably help you out too in terms of you port content from course online to the class content. So we have several different ways that we'll work with schools today in terms of creating that blended environment. One is we have an entire skills transformation team that will work with you, your faculty, and your departments to make sure that we are bringing in the right content to create that private setting for your specific school. So you also asked earlier in terms of the model of how Coursera for Campus operates with an enterprise license. The way that we operate today is that you actually buy a seat. So let's say you buy 1,000 seats or 1,000 licenses. You are allowed to move in and out of those seats as many people as you want throughout the course of 1 year. The minimum year that we work with a university, just because of timing and everything, is 2 years. A lot of our folks are signing up for 3 to 5 years. So what you would actually do is we'd work with you and our skills transformation team, start to align the curriculum that you would look to support your current curriculum with what we have. We could build in new stuff on the private authoring tools. Those tools that you receive on the back end of our platform are the same exact tools and infrastructure that our university partners that you'll be receiving content from the University of Michigan or the Imperial College of London, whomever. Same exact tools, and then we can build in whatever courses that you'd like there. New offer doc. Did I get kicked off? Oh, I'm back. Okay. Same environment. I think the question was in terms of the environment for labs and documentation. Melody, can you touch base on what type of documentation they would receive from us and what type of support?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to documentation, we not only offer documentation on how to use the functionality, to students, to faculty members, to technical developers on our team. We also offer video-based training. So we actually have like micro courses on Coursera to teach you how to use Coursera. And we also have a very strong technical solution engineering support team that will help you consult not only on how to design some of the experiences, but also how to implement it that way that can maximize the learning outcome. Yeah, you're muted.
Yep, thank you. And once again, this is just an example in terms of how some schools are actually doing it today, because they could have one subset of students that are coming in to work on the Intro to Electronics from the Georgia Institute of Technology for the first semester, and they'll bring in a whole new subset of students in for the second semester. So they're actually able to get 2 students through one class. And then we have some other folks that are doing it on quarterly, depending on the length of the class or certification that we do provide as well on the platform. So several different ways to do it. With that being said, here's another use case. Let's see if I can't, when I get kicked off, I don't know if Lisa, if you could, exact, thank you. There's another way in terms of how you can integrate some hands-on labs into your curricula today. There's several different ways to do it. We can work with you on that blended or flipped classroom. We have capstone projects that can be developed where students could actually work to actually do some things. We also have some standalone for credit. We have a lot of students wanting to take Coursera content outside of their field of study to become more well-rounded. So it's important to them that even if they are taking a liberal arts degree, for example, that they would like to become familiar with what is the practices, what is Python, what is data science. Data science they know is going to impact their daily lives as they move into the workforce. So making sure that we can provide some type of standalone credit for them is also very useful. Are there metrics that we would know which methods are working best for our lab? Maybe Mel, you might be able to give her some information in terms of the metrics.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Leslie. So in terms of methods, we don't have specific data on how for example, how out of these 5 different methods, how they're performing in terms of different scenarios. But this is kind of based on our learning research it's more kind of foundational, where we understand, hey, when does it make sense to use what types of learning technology or learning experience? We're looking forward to seeing more data from actual use, and then see how we can tell validate some of the learning research that we have on our end.
Oh, here we go. See if I can't go back. So as we talked at the very beginning, one of the large challenges was making sure that we were preparing students for that job market, and having the ability to start to package some of these projects to deliver real world experience so that it could showcase to those employers has been increasingly important when there's really been a drop off or a lack of opportunity in internships today. We've got several schools that are actually having students start to create their own guided projects, work in our lab environments, things of that nature, so they can start to showcase their skills and almost have a portfolio to walk into that employer and showcase them. We've received a lot of feedback from a lot of employers today saying the ability to show applied learning and not just say, hey, I took this asynchronous course, has been impeccable to the success metrics of their hires that they're bringing into the organization. So there's a lot of other success metrics that can be attached. With the success metrics, the other thing that I would point to you is on the back of the Coursera platform in terms of the diagnostics and looking at the skills that are achieved for each one of your students as they work through some of the curriculum. There is several ways to measure these folks as well. Not only can you measure them against a certain group, but you can also start to measure them against a larger audience as well in terms of where they are fitting from a certain skill that you're looking to train up on. So there's lots of different things that you're able to do. But the first thing that we really want to do is make sure that we are preparing these students to become job ready as we work with our employers as well today. Last question in the chat here for you guys. Where would hands-on applied learning have the most impact on your campus? As we go through this, everybody gets quiet. Love to blend AI-based PI class. Nice. Okay. And I think what you'll start to see is that with Coursera and you sit down with our skills transformation team, you'll be able to build out whether it is that first year engineering course and you want to start to move everybody. We've had a lot of engineering schools come to us and say, hey, if you could just do my 101 MATLAB introduction to get everybody up again and running, that would be amazing. Because not a lot of people want to spend time actually retraining those students or actually getting them acquainted back into the software after they've taken a year off or they've taken the summer back. It's a nice little intro course to kind of jumpstart them saying, hey, by the way, you're back at school. We're starting up again. So yes, it's definitely something that we would have. And then once again, working with our skills transformation team, there's going to be the ability to start to look at all the content that is on the platform, as well as some of the guided projects, and really start to blend that into the curriculum that would help offset some of the things that you maybe don't have today with some of the quality things that you are already teaching. So we could help hopefully support some of those AI-based programs that you're looking for into the future. And obviously that capstone classes for skill building would be immensely important, and I'm sure a bunch of students would enjoy doing a little bit more hands-on things along those lines. With that, we'll leave it open here to anybody who has questions. I want to say thanks again for the hour that everybody has given us here, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll definitely be around to answer any questions.
All right. Well, it looks like it's time for us to wrap up this webinar. Thanks again to JP and Melody, and thanks everyone for joining us. On behalf of ECETA, I'd like to thank Coursera for making this ECE webinar possible. Please visit the ECETA website to access the on-demand version of this webinar and other ECE webinars from ECETA. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.